support.
I support.
I support.
I support.
I support.
I support.
I support. Make a difference.
I Support is brought to you by Sari Honda.
Hello everyone, welcome to I Support. My name is Tanvir Singh. I'm the Vice President of the Quantum Student Association as well as a student at KPU. Today I'm joined with Alex McGowan.
Hi everyone, I'm Alex McGowan. I'm the chairperson of the Alliance BC Students. I'm also the president of the Quantum Student Association and a recent graduate in the political science program. Also joining us here is the Honourable Harry Bains, MLA for Surrey Newton.
Hi, I'm Harry Bains, MLA for Surrey Newton.
And our topic for today is going to be student or youth engagement in politics. So Mr. Bains, obviously as someone that is heavily involved in politics, how have you been engaging youth in your politics?
Well, I think it's a difficult part. I certainly believe that if every member of our society isn't engaged in the political system, then democracy will not work. And we will continue to have elections and go through the rituals. We will continue to elect governments, but those governments will not be representative of majority of the population. So I think it's very, very important that we engage our youth. That's where the new ideas come from. That's our future. Those are future leaders. They will be the one who will be running the country. And so I think more they engage in the early stages, better it is for our future, for our country.
And that's definitely potentially a controversial opinion. Politics has generally been thought of as a old person's game, essentially. So do either of you two have an opinion on whether or not youth are actively being engaged in politics, or whether youth are doing it themselves, or whether they're being engaged by politicians?
You know, I think that there's a real issue in our country. We know that young people are not engaging enough with the political system. They're voting in much lower numbers. It's often difficult for political parties to recruit young people into their ranks. And that's a really big problem, because young people bring new ideas, they bring fresh energy, and they bring that passion to the party and to the political system. And there are different narratives for explaining why young people aren't engaging. And I think that it's a real travesty that we often say that young people are apathetic, and we blame it on young people for not participating enough, instead of taking the onus on us as a society, because I know that in my interactions with young people that they care. They really, really care. They volunteer, they get involved on campus, they believe in their community, but consistently we see them not engaging as much with the political system, and I think that's a fault of our political system, not that there's something wrong with young people.
I agree. I think when you really look at this, blaming one segment of the society for not participating, I think is an old way of just pointing fingers. You take a look, if you consider or compare that with the women voters, they're not as much involved in politics as much men are. But you don't blame women for that. You gotta look at why. Women have many obstacles, and we need to work with them, make sure that we remove those obstacles and work and help those women who wish to get involved, that they don't have those obstacles. And the students and the youth are the same situation. They have education to worry about, their careers to worry about, and this is the beginning of their career. So we need to help them. We need to engage them to make sure that they understand that everything in our life is affected by politics. The better that you be there on the table where the decisions are being made, so that people around you can understand you, and the decisions are made that are actually good for you, and then you can represent that part of the segment of the society. So I think that's why it's so much important. I suggested, and I think it's a good thing, I think you need to put some concrete solutions to the problem. I think if you allow our youth to register for voting at earlier stage, in high school, at age 16, I think at least then they will have a card in their hand, say, hey, I am a voter actually in 2 years or 3 years. That I will be, with this comes with some responsibility, that I better take that next step and go and vote, and maybe engage in the political arena and help with one candidate or another, or one political party or another. That's the kind of stuff that we need to put into concrete solutions involving students, getting their ideas, and say, look, yes, I think let's go step at a time and fix this problem, rather than blaming the students. students.
Absolutely, and on the topic of obstacles that come with being engaged with the political system, I know one of my friends, a recent immigrant to Canada, got a citizenship and didn't have a driver's license, so he wasn't sure about what kind of forms of ID he could use to register to vote, like what he had to bring to the actual table when it came to voting at the previous federal election. And one of the things that the Colin Student Association actually did, and Alex ran this campaign last year, which was the Get Out the Vote campaign, was to educate youth on what kind of things that they need to bring to the actual voting booth. So, you know, for my friend, he had no clue like what he was allowed to bring, what actually qualified as a form of identification, and that's definitely like one of the barriers that was there. And even after being told, he wasn't really sure whether or not he trusted the information, but he definitely went out and voted after we were able to tell him that this is what you can use to go and vote in the federal election.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the dangers of speaking to youth in a bit of a, we're going to educate you on why this is important, is that we're sort of saying, you know, we know you're not voting, but we really think you need to vote. We know you don't care, we really think this is why you should care. And what we do when we say young people are apathetic is we tell this group of people that all their friends don't care, because they know they care. The vast majority of people know that they care. But what they're hearing is that their friends don't care. So they're less likely to bring it up in conversation. They're less likely to go out of their way to focus more attention on it. And what that does is when young people, when anyone votes, they know that their single vote doesn't really matter. I don't think anyone is really under the delusion that one vote statistically makes that big a difference. But voting is a cooperative thing. It's a collaborative societal thing. We participate with like-minded people to make a difference together. It's not something that we do because of an individualistic desire to have an effect on the system.
Let me ask you this question. Do you think having more political education, regardless of what courses you're taking, what program you're engaged in, having more understanding about what different political parties stand for, what they actually can do for you if when you are in the working age or when you're as a student? How does it help your neighborhood? How does it help you in your having your education system more accessible and more affordable? So who and which party actually does what? What do they stand for? If that kind of information was provided at every level, and you think would that give you more kind of incentive to say, hey, actually, I believe in these values, and maybe I should go support this political party or person, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we as a society need to be doing a much better job of providing information to our youth, especially in that high school age. I know in attending high school here in Surrey, I didn't learn pretty much anything about the way Canada works, the way our government works, the way political parties work. I didn't know how to get involved. If I said I really want to get involved, there might have been some parent or grandparent age person who would be able to help me get involved. But that should be, it should be part of our education system, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I really noticed in the previous provincial election, or sorry, the federal election, was that youth were very engaged when it came to issues. So people had very large, like big opinions, very loud opinions on very certain issues, but people were having hard times on figuring out which party stood for which issues, and sometimes they were confused about what fiscal issues were, what social issues were, like which party stood for what. And I think it's really important for the individual politicians to be there and to really talk about their issues and what's really important to their specific ridings as well.
So what other concrete solution I think the people in power need to look at that you think will engage the youth more so? Yes, provide them information and the knowledge, but what other things? Like I threw one idea that maybe we should allow youth at early stage in high school at age 16 to register, but they are voting at age voting age 18 or 19, whatever time comes, and then they are voting. But at least that'll give them sense of ownership that I am actually a voter, that I should go and vote now. And so I think something like that, and then you have other concrete solutions could be have all the different political parties come and engage with you at your campuses and have an open discussion, not to promote their political parties, but have an open discussion on issues. And so that when they leave, at least you know where they actually stand. And ask them questions. What have you actually done in the past? Like, you say this is what is needed, this is what my values are. But when you were in power, what did you actually apply those values? So I mean, that's how you judge them. Would that work?
I think definitely like that it's a great way to engage youth.
Hey, I'm Johnny Staub.
And I'm Nira Arora from 94.5 Virgin Radio.
And you're watching
Close Look.
This is Casey Shovelave, and you are watching Close Look.
You're watching
Close Look.
My name is Mohammed, and you're watching Close Look.
I think one of the most powerful things that us as youth can do is really tell people how engaged we were with the previous federal election and show the results of that. And I know that the Canadian Alliance of Student Associations has numbers on what has actually happened with youth engagement in politics as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've seen an unprecedented increase in the youth turnout in the last federal election, and carrying that forward is absolutely something that we want to do. I think one of the other tangible things that we could do at that high school level, I know that in Alberta, in their recent provincial election, many schools ran a mock election, so they had all the high school kids vote for what party they would want, and they released those results and showed what the result in Alberta would be if the high school age kids were voting.
That happens here too, but not in every school.
Not in every school.
But I think it is something real tangible, the word that you're using, or real concrete that I say, that we need to bring and discuss with students and among students. And also, I think, when it comes election time, maybe the student associations can take that as a real, a goal. One of their goals is to increase the voter participation from their own campuses. And how do you do that, right? So perhaps that's the discussion that you want to take it with you, and maybe have a discussion with your executive and see what are some of the things that you can do.
Absolutely.
To encourage them.
I think that's one of the roles that a student society like ours has to play. When you look at there's always advocacy groups in society working on behalf of segments within our society, and that's great. Groups get that representation and talk to government, and those groups can be mobilized around elections. But young people don't have a group. Old people have a group. It's called the Canadian Association for Retired Persons, CARP. It's a very big group, very powerful organization. But young people don't have that. I think the closest people young people have is student society, student associations. And so I've really embraced that role of how can we be an advocate for youth, and how can we make sure that this whole series of barriers that you mentioned earlier to participation that young people face, how can we work those down? And bringing politicians onto campus around election time, and bringing polling stations onto campus so students can vote there. These are huge things that we can do.
What about some of the different jurisdictions like Australia? Have you looked at Australia? They actually fine you, or they have a system where when you file your income tax and you have to pay. Basically, at the end of the day, if you don't vote, it costs you. Although it's not much, but it gives you that little extra. I don't want to pay. I better go and vote. I don't know. Have you thought about that?
I think that's really, absolutely, I think that's very interesting, and my personal opinion is that, like, by forcing people to vote, it's kind of taking away their freedom of expression and speech. But I think that students or youth in general, like, whether or not you want to vote for one of the candidates, you should just go out and vote. Spoil your ballot, do something, but just show up at the polling booth and be there. And I think it's our youth's role to actually encourage our fellow youth to actually go out and vote, because we know that as soon as someone starts voting, they will more likely continue to keep voting.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you look at mandatory voting in Australia, I'm absolutely in favor of it. I think that we should have mandatory voting, but I think there should be an option at the end of every ballot, which is none of the above. So that you're forced to vote, but you can say, I don't like any of them. Because it is your right to say, I don't want to support anything.
Well, if you just look around the world, there are people giving, fighting and giving their lives to have the right to vote, to have the right to freedom. And here we have that right. And I think that's another message that we need to send out, that our forefathers or parents and their parents, they fought for the freedom and liberty for us to have a right to vote. And we should exercise that. I think that message needs to go out as well. Just look around us, and the rest of the world is fighting, and they're putting their lives on the line, so they will have the right to vote. And so maybe just remind people how important that is for us to go and participate and vote.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when you talk to young people who haven't experienced that, and for them it's just a given that they can vote, to the point where some barriers that get in their way might stop them from voting, where people in other countries will wait in 8-hour lineups to get turned away, but they don't care because they're trying to vote, and I think that is an issue. When you think about the concept of first world problems, we've got this problem where people aren't voting. It's definitely a first world problem.
Here in BC, from 1900 to 1947, there are many members of our society who weren't allowed to vote.
Absolutely,
Chinese, Japanese, First Nation people, South Asians, they didn't have right to vote, and there was so much work that was done by so many people. So finally, 1947, 1948, they were given the right to vote. Our First Nations waited until 1959, I believe, until they got the right to vote. So I think these voting rights were fought for, and they were earned by people who came before us. So I think that's another incentive for us to keep this legacy going, so that our children and their children will see that this generation also gave them something better than what they inherited from their parents.
I absolutely agree with that, and I think it's really important for us to not take that for granted, and specifically in my family, my parents make sure that I go and vote in the voting day. The last, I've only participated in 3 elections so far, 1 municipal, 1 federal, and 1 provincial one as well. And my parents made sure that every single time that I would go out and vote, because of how important it is, and how back in the day, in the Canadian community particularly, didn't have the ability to go out and vote, and we should take advantage of that, because we went out there, we fought for the rights, and we earned it. And I think it's important for us, especially as youth, to start engaging young people early on and let our peers know that it's important for us to vote and why it is important for us. So yeah, I also think it's really important for us to make sure that even parents, when they're educating their children, to let them know that they can vote for whoever they want to vote for. In my family, my mom definitely votes for one party, my father votes for another one, and I'm kind of stuck in the middle with both of them glaring at me about who did I vote for that day. They'll never ask me who I voted for. They kind of expect it. But I think it's also important for parents to take a look at their kids, and they might swing a certain way when it comes to which political party that they favor, but I think it's really important for them to take a step back and know that it's their decision to make. And once you've reached the age that you're allowed to vote, that it's your duty as an adult to make that conscious decision yourself.
I think responsibility starts at home. There's no doubt about that. And the parents, they're busy, getting busier and busier and working harder and longer. They have so much on the plate, but I agree, because everything that they do is affected by politics, as I said earlier. So it is important that every discussion that they have, when you're talking about the values to become a good person when you grow up, I think one of the responsibility part of that would be, get involved in the electoral process, which means minimum go and vote. And I think, I think as a parent, we need to bring all of the information, not just what we believe, all of the information, so that when our children are growing up, they have all of the information. And I believe when you give everything that person need to know, then they'll make the right decision. So not what I like them to learn, but everything. Then they'll make up their own decision. And like in Europe also, that's great.
Alright, so I just wanted to thank everyone for watching our program today. And so if you'd like to get involved and join our show, you can visit our website, closelook.ca.